This is UTSN. Sunday Evening Jam, Capone until 10 o'clock. We are on YouTube right now. Yes, it is UTSN Broadcasting Network. Oh, yeah. On the Android phone, it is what? UTSN. The iPhone, Uptown News. On the television, the Caribcast. You find that app, UTSN app, the Caribcast. Online is utsnnetwork.com. All over the world, right? Ha 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 ha.
Experience broadcasting to the world. UTSNnetwork.com. News, sports, music, community service, and agricultural information. Stay tuned.
This is UTSN. This program here brought to you by Bob Carr. Bob Carr, 1600 West Sunrise Boulevard. Yes, only place in America you could go and pay down $199. Yes, $199. You get the BMW, the Benz. Yeah, the Audi, yes. The Volvo, the Toyota, name it, they have it there, yeah. Big Bob Carr, 1600 West Sunrise Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, 954-500-2277. Yes, once you have a job, you can drive, yeah. No credit check, no credit check. You paid on $199, okay? Only Big Bob Carr in America, yes. You have a job, you're good, huh? Don't worry about whatever you owe somewhere or whatever. Once you have a job, you can pay for your car monthly, you got it. Just ask for Mike, M-I-K-E, Big Bob Carr, 1600 West Sunrise Boulevard, 954-500-2277. Yes, yeah. In Jamaica, it's like these ex-slave drivers still live down there. Not ex, they still. Their family pass it on to them, the Mazooka, the Matalan, the Issa, name they are still there. That means you still have to keep down the 80% of Jamaican to work for them. If they're independent, they don't want them if they're independent. They bring in what they want to bring in Jamaica, they take what they take out. Those folks doesn't go to custom in Jamaica. They run Jamaica. Okay? They run Jamaica. A black person don't have a chance in Jamaica. They have like a shop. One little car dealership, the corner they sell 2 cars. And that's nothing. With our corporation like like Grace Kennedy, LaSalle, New Park, name it. One black man is in Jamaica, have a real business. He do pharmaceutical. Well, you can call Michael Chin black, him saying black. The NCB. But guess what? 100,000 business in Jamaica, they make sure they keep for the black man because they want the black man to do their labor on the farm, on the factory, and in construction, yeah. Well, let's go back right now, right? And see what's going on. Because guess what? It is here. In Jamaica, people turn on each other because still have a slave mentality. Host niggers down there in jacket and tie. P.J. Patterson, Andrew Holness, Bruce Golden, Portia Simpson, all the same thing. Real house nigger, more dangerous than the damn master. Oh yeah. Let's go here right now, huh?
Let me give a special shout out to Audley, my friend in England who inspired me to do this video. We had some critical conversation and I went on a research to find out more about Thomas Thistle. Hello, thanks for joining me. I want to take you on a journey this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are. And I want to tell you about a section of history that has somewhat been hidden. Let's not forget, in our schools, we were taught that slaves were seasoned to work on the plantation, which simply meant they were broken into the system by being beaten. But let me get this straight. What Thomas Thistle did to the slaves, you will never imagine. And you could never imagine that someone could have done that to another human being. Stay around as I explore and build a timeline to his wickedness in the Caribbean. Never forget the name Thomas Tisselwood, because he created a dose that you could never imagine, a dose that was given to slaves. Listen and be informed. Thomas was born in 1721 in England. Seeking wealth in 1750, he decided to journey to the colony of Jamaica and settle in a place called Egypt in Westmoreland. He worked there as an overseer on 2 slave plantations. An overseer is someone who directs the slaves on their daily activities. He bought his first slave in 1756, and he also purchased land. One of Thomas's key attributes was his ability to document his daily activities, and he did so in great detail for over 30 years. It is estimated that his diary has over 10,000 pages. As I go more in depth in finding more about Thomas Tisselwood, I realize that his section of history, that his contribution to the wickedness has been somewhat hidden from public view. Let me go on. I can't comprehend why Thomas's work is not easily accessible in digital form so everyone can view the work. In his diary entries, we can establish that he had a sadistic way of life and he had a strong appetite for enslaved women. On analysis of his diary entries, it is estimated that he had over 3,800 sexual acts with over 138 women in 36 years in Jamaica. Based on the record, he seemed to have had a likeness to one slave called Phoebe. Tisselwood and other plantation owners believed that having sex with enslaved women would show white men's dominance over the slaves, of course. As a matter of fact, he started this when he was an overseer. He raped, beat, and murdered slaves. So when he got his own slaves, the treatment was not different, but more severe. Follow me again. Tisselwood was also known to have tied up his slaves, laced their bodies with molasses, and exposed the slave to mosquitoes and flies all night. Just imagine that. However, this punishment was far from what you could imagine. Tisselwood invented the Derby's dose. Yes, because this dose represents the lack of respect for human dignity. If a slave did something that Thomas thought was wrong, he would have the slave beaten, then lime juice thrown into the wound, and then the slave would be tied up. From Tisselwood's perspective, this punishment was not enough. So what he had other slaves do was to grab the slave who had committed that offense, tie the slave up in a position that would allow another slave to defecate in that slave's mouth. Of course, place their own feces, their body waste, into the other slave's mouth. And after that, the slave who had received the feces into their mouth had their mouths shut and gagged for 4 to 5 hours. And as a matter of fact, we all know if your mouth is gagged with an object or any item within, you are forced to swallow. That is very humiliating. Yes, Thomas Tisselwood must be known for what he did to black people in the Caribbean, and this story must be told for generations to understand the impact of slavery, its psychological impact on those who were victims of such treatments. His line of punishment did not stop there. There are other things. Stay around as I continue to build the storyline regarding the wickedness of Thomas Tisselwood. Thomas Tisselwood also allowed slaves to urinate on other slaves in their eyes and in their mouths for punishment. He flogged slaves for just waking him up in the night. In another entry he made, he flogged 2 slaves for eating cassava that was prepared badly. He was just upset that they would not be able to work the following morning, although they almost died. One slave that seemed to have received so many doses of beating seemed to have been Lincoln. His name is mentioned countless times in various diary entries. But let me say that slaves found ways to deal with Thomas Tisselwood in a passive way. As a matter of fact, I called it passive resistance, and this is also reflected in our history books. They pretended to be ill. They ran away from Thomas. As a matter of fact, they sometimes planted crops incorrectly. Slaves will also cause injury to the plantation animals. They would damage or lose the tools for the plantation. These were just some of the many strategies employed by slaves to ensure that they resisted this evil institution. However, the greatest resistance ever seen by Tisselwood was Taki's rebellion or revolt. According to Tisselwood's diary, militia forces, troops, and Maroons joined together to attack Taki's forces. The diary entry states that Taki was shot and killed by Davy, a Maroon sharpshooter. From Tisselwood's perspective, he believed that Obia had a vital part to play in Taki's resistance. Yes, and as a matter of fact, in that year, Obia was banned. Taki, yes, he died in the attack, but we must understand the struggles of the black people as they fought to resist individuals like Tisselwood. While Thomas Tisselwood did not indicate that he had anything to do with the punishment that was leveled at the slaves who were caught in the resistance, let me say he was also a part of the system. Those slaves who were caught were hanged on trees, and many of them, as a matter of fact, were placed on the ground and their hands shackled. After they were shackled, of course, their feet were set ablaze, and they would watch their feet burn into ash. And then they would take the hand on, and the hand would start to burn. And of course, that led to the eventual death of the slave. We should not try to hide the history. We should highlight the history. Please be aware that I've placed some links that you can read the history that I've outlined here and learn more, because I think it's so important that we learn together, because many of these things that I've mentioned today would not have been revealed in our history books, but sit on a shelf in one of these big libraries across the United States and in England. We must make the information accessible to every Jamaican and individuals across the Caribbean. Now you see from what I've outlined here, Thomas Tisselwood should go down in history as one of the wickedest persons as it relates to human beings. Yes, slaves were psychologically damaged by his ordeal. Notwithstanding, we had individuals who continued to struggle on. We should not avoid knowing our history. Rather, we should take time to learn, because the history that we learn today will guide our future. The struggle continues. The struggle is real, because what Thomas Tisselwood did is now being found out by other academics across the world. Let's not forget the reality of slavery, and what they fought for and what we are enjoying is a part of their legacy as individuals who fought for freedom. Thanks for joining me.
News, sports, music, community service, agricultural information. It's all happening right here on utsnnetwork.com.
This is UTSN. Yes. It is Jamaica right now. is the Hotel Plantation. Yes? I'll come back with that, huh? Modern way of doing slavery, huh?
The latest in news, sports, the best in music, community service, and agricultural information. Log on to utsnnetwork.com. Ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, moms and dads, you're listening to utsnnetwork.com. Share it to the friend.
This is UTSN. Let's go back to Jamaica. Yes. Slavery, huh? Still there, huh? All over.
This history is specifically about Jamaica, even though it happened in the US. Nevertheless, the history is about Jamaica, from someone born and raised here. Are you familiar with Jamaican terminology, Bosie house slave? In Jamaican patois, Bosie means boastful or arrogant. The term house slave historically refers to enslaved people who worked in the master's house rather than the fields. These house slaves were often seen as more privileged compared to field slaves, sometimes resulting in tensions or perceptions of arrogance. Therefore, in the context I am referring to, Bosie house slave is someone who is perceived as overly proud or arrogant, particularly if they are seen as having a relatively privileged position compared to others. This term is used to critique individuals who, despite being part of an oppressed group, align themselves with the oppressor or exhibit a sense of superiority. Bosie house slave terminology is widely used in Jamaica, but many might not know its origin or history. In Jamaican history, some house slaves who were their master's favorites inherited slaves. This video is about black people owning slaves in Jamaica. It's important to understand that this wasn't a case of black individuals going to Africa to buy slaves. Instead, it happened through inheritance. These black slave owners didn't typically have large plantations like their white counterparts. However, their attitudes and actions towards their fellow black people often mirrored those of the colonizers. Hence, the phrase, Bosie house slave, emerges as a testament to this complex dynamic. This continued until the 1st of August 1838 when slavery was fully abolished in Jamaica. I say, fully abolished, because slavery was somewhat abolished in 1834. Bosie house slaves still exist today.
to a global experience broadcasting to the world. UTSNnetwork.com. News, sports, music, community service, and agricultural information. Stay tuned.
This program is sponsored by Cozy Guest House, Florida. Yes, Cozy Guest House, Florida. Vacation, rental, or extended stay when you come to Florida. That's a place you should go. Yes, just look on the UTSN website. Cozy Guest House, Florida. Vacation, rental, or extended stay. You save 50%. 954-479-8212. 954-479-8212. Let's go back to Jamaica. Jamaica Plantation, yes. Well, they have, people don't want to cut cane no more. Don't cut cane no more to make a living. Well, they're still doing it, but not like first time. You know, they have machinery and things like those, and there's less sugar cane in Jamaica. Now they come with the hotel business, huh? That's a new plantation, right? Yeah, let's go to Jamaica in a minute. 60 seconds, we'll go back to Jamaica, okay?
It is the custom in this parish to retain a week's wages in hand if he changes to another estate. It is the custom in this parish to retain a week's wages in hand if he changes to another estate or stays to work his own ground or remains at home from sickness or other cause. He always loses this last week's hire. People are ignorant of the history of how often the state has colluded with the elites of Jamaica to create policies and laws that are specifically designed to stifle small businesses. Why do you think Jamaica Customs operate the way it does now for your little $500 worth of things that you're bringing in? But back to the history, because the records are there to show us how many times the government and the elites have fought out the economic efforts of black people. At another time, I'm going to go into the history of the landed gentry and how some families came in possession of thousands of acres while the rest of us still have to be begging for something from NHD. But today, I'm reading from a book called Color for Color, Skin for Skin. Now remember, emancipation was in 1834, which means that we were supposedly no longer slaves, right? So workers were moving on. They had access to little plots of land. They were growing their crops, right? They were feeding their families, and they were content with that. But now came the problem of these plantations still existing without slaves to work them. The production of sugar, more than the production of any other exportable tropical crops in the island, more than cattle or horse breeding, required a large, consistently reliable and accessible labor force. That is, estate Negroes. To do this, a state of dependency had to be created to subject the laborers to the requirements of the estates. Hence, the plantocracy and its allies invariably reacted in a hostile manner to blacks who showed a certain degree of independence. For example, William Carr, magistrate and proprietor of Riversdale and Newhall estates in St. Thomas in the Vale, said, "I should be glad if they would be dependent on my capital. The Negroes are not like those in Barbados. They are not dependent upon estates for their livelihood. That is the great cause of our non-prosperity. No doubt that is the root of all the evil. Their very independence is an evil." Large landed proprietor, member of the Assembly and Custos, Peter Espute, expressed similar views. He said, "Continuous labor are very badly off. I mean persons that will work on estates whenever their services are required. But it so happens that they do not do it. They have their own patches to cultivate, and you very often find that they are doing that when you require them." In other words, how dare these Negroes be working their own land, be growing their own food when their bodies are needed for labor on the estates? An unnamed planter also expressed his view. "The people are too independent, too well off here. They work for us only 4 days in the week and hang about their own properties or go to market on the other 2. We cannot improve our estates without a full week's labor." Everything had to be done, therefore, to make laborers less independent, less fickle, less arbitrary, and uncertain. Above all, they were to be made propertyless, without the means to make their own living. Since access to the smallest patch of land, including rented land, represented hope and possibility, they invariably adopted a hostile, intolerant position steeped in race and class chauvinism in their relationship to the black population, whose role was to be a class of menials at the perpetual service of white people. And this is why it's important that the real facts of our history are told. Because too often we have people who are the very subject of these labor restrictions, the people who these systems of dependency was designed to keep at the bottom. Too often we have those people defending the very system because they don't understand that it is by design to keep certain people at the top as the holders of economic power and to keep certain people at the bottom in a state of dependency, and that it is all structured around race. The book also went on to give examples of how the plantocracy implemented this regime of dependency. It says, Mary Williams, a laborer of Holland Estate, for example, had to work 10 hours daily, 5 days weekly, weeding 25 chains of sugarcane each day for 6 pence per day, or 2 shillings and 6 pence per week. Williams, however, ended up getting 1 shilling each week because the estate management took 4 bits for rent, 60% of her weekly pay. The cost for weeding 75 chains of cane. In another case, Anne Wedderburn, a laborer who was born on Holland Estate and never worked anywhere else, worked every day for the year except on Sundays and when she fell ill. She was always owed 1 week's wages by the estate management. Accordingly, she said, if I worked last week, I should not get paid till the following Tuesday. In this regard, Harvey and Bruin noted that, quote, it is the custom in this parish to retain a week's wages in hand for the avowed purpose of ensuring the return of the laborer to his work. The latter asserts that if he changes to another estate or stays to work his own ground or remains at home from sickness or other cause, he always loses this last week's hire. The wage regime, which gave the planters the power to deduct, reduce, withhold, and abolish wages, became a major instrument for the creation of a dependent labor force, especially since these planters and the state which they composed had power over land distribution. The fact that there are black people now who are participating in this system of labor oppression and labor exploitation does not make it any less racist and does not make it any less of a system that is oppressive to black people. It is beneficial to the elite class to have a small number of black people among their numbers, because as long as we, the laboring class, can see that there are a few people who are there who look like us, and as long as they keep feeding us and we keep believing this ideology of out of many one people, as long as we buy into this system that if we just work a little more harder, if we just do a little more overtime, if we take you on a second job, if we just do, as long as we keep buying into this notion that it is because we are not working hard enough why we don't have what they have, as long as we ignore the historical design of the current structure and buy into the facade that they want to sell us, then there is no possibility of us rising up and revolting against them.
What if we told you that there are a few powerful families that control nearly half of Jamaica's wealth? We are going to discover how their wealth and influence shape the island's economy and politics in ways you won't believe. Here are the richest families that secretly control Jamaica. We are going to begin with the Lee Chin family. Michael Lee Chin is a powerhouse in the business world, steering his family's financial ventures to new heights. His big break came with savvy investments in National Commercial Bank, NCB, and AIC Limited, setting the stage for his financial empire. As the president and chairman of Portland Holdings, a private investment company, Lee Chin has demonstrated a keen eye for lucrative opportunities. Meanwhile, his younger brother, Wayne Chen, holds the reins at Superplus food stores, showcasing the family's diverse economic influence. Michael Lee Chin's strategic investments and leadership have earned him a spot on the Forbes billionaires list, with an impressive net worth of $1.5 billion. The Lee Chin brothers' ventures highlight their significant impact on key sectors, solidifying their legacy in the business world. Next up, we have the Stewart family. The Stewart family stands out as one of Jamaica's wealthiest and most influential dynasties, making a profound impact on the tourism and automotive industries. The late Gordon Butch Stewart, a visionary entrepreneur, founded Sandals Resorts International, a world-renowned luxury resort chain, and the ATL Group, which includes Appliance Traders Limited and a thriving automotive division. His brother, Richard Stewart, laid the groundwork for Stewart's Automotive Group, a leading car dealership in Jamaica that handles prestigious brands like BMW, Mitsubishi, and Jaguar. Today, this family legacy continues under the capable management of Jacqueline Stewart, who oversees the automotive group. With a combined net worth estimated at around $1 billion, the Stewart family's businesses are integral to Jamaica's economy. Key figures include Adam Stewart, who serves as the executive chairman of Sandals Resorts, and Jacqueline Stewart, who helms Stewart's automotive group, ensuring the family's enduring influence in Jamaica's business landscape. Coming up at number 3 is the Desnos family. The Desnos family has been pivotal in shaping Jamaica's economy and cultural identity. Co-founders of Desnos and Geddes, D&G, launched the iconic Red Stripe beer, which became a global symbol of Jamaican culture. This business was co-started by Paul Desnos. Beyond brewing, the family expanded into beverages and hospitality, amassing a net worth of around $600 million. Their business ventures have had a profound impact on Jamaica, not just economically, but also in enhancing the nation's global image. Red Stripe's international success has boosted tourism and created jobs, while their investments in the hospitality sector have further cemented Jamaica's status as a premier travel destination. The Desnos family's influence extends beyond business, as they are also known for their philanthropic efforts supporting local communities and social causes. Their legacy is one of significant entrepreneurial achievement, cultural impact, and social responsibility, making them key figures in Jamaica's development. Alongside the Desnos family, we have the Geddes family. The Geddes family's legacy in Jamaica is deeply intertwined with the country's brewing and beverage industry. The person who played a pivotal role in building this legacy was Eugene Peter Geddes, who co-founded Desnos and Geddes, D&G, along with Paul Desnos in 1918. The company became best known for producing Red Stripe, a beer that has become iconic both in Jamaica and internationally. Eugene Geddes was instrumental in establishing the company's reputation for quality and innovation. Under his leadership, D&G expanded its product line and distribution networks, helping to shape Jamaica's beverage industry. The success of Red Stripe in particular was a major factor in the company's growth, eventually leading to its global recognition. The wealth of the Geddes family is largely derived from the success of Desnos and Geddes. As the company grew, so did the family's influence and financial standing. The estimated net worth of the Geddes family, around $600 million, reflects the enduring success of their business ventures. Their impact on Jamaica's economy extends beyond the brewery, as they have been involved in various other sectors and philanthropic efforts that have further solidified their legacy in the country. Next, we got the Orain family. At the helm of Grace Kennedy, a global powerhouse with a footprint in more than 60 countries, the Orain family has made their mark across a wide range of industries, from finance to food production. Don Webby, the current CEO of Grace Kennedy, steers this expansive conglomerate with impressive skill and vision. Under his leadership, Grace Kennedy has thrived and diversified its operations, reinforcing the Orain family's significant influence in the business world. With a net worth surpassing $500 million, the family's impact is clear, reflecting not just their economic success, but also their broad reach across various sectors. Up next is the Matalon family. The Matalon family, rooted in Syrian Jewish heritage, began their remarkable journey in the mid-20th century. Moses Matalon founded the ICD Group in Wicken, pioneering major urban development projects in the Caribbean. One of their most notable achievements is the Greater Portmore Housing Development, which remains the largest housing project ever undertaken in the region. Today, Joseph Matalon leads the family's business empire, which has grown to include significant holdings in construction and real estate. His leadership has ensured the continued success and substantial revenue generation of their ventures. With a net worth estimated at $350 million, the Matalon family's influence in the industry is a testament to their enduring impact and business acumen. Next up is a very powerful family which controls the food sector in Jamaica, the Mahfoud family. Hailing from Lebanon, the Mahfoud family made their mark in the 1960s with the creation of the Wisinko Group. This powerhouse is behind beloved brands like Wada and Bega, making a significant splash in the beverage world. Today, William Mahfoud is at the helm, steering the family business to impressive heights. With Wisynco's annual revenues surpassing a staggering $40 billion, the family's influence in the food and beverage industry is undeniable. Valued at approximately $300 million, the Mahfood family's wealth reflects their success and strong presence in the market. Now let us talk about the family that leads the tourism industry in Jamaica, the Issa family. Abraham Elias Issa is often celebrated as the pioneer of Jamaican tourism, credited with laying the foundation for the island's tourism boom in the late 1950s. As Jamaica's first president of the Jamaica Tourist Board, he played a crucial role in shaping the industry's growth. Beyond tourism, Issa left an indelible mark on Jamaica's commercial landscape, founding the island's first modern department store, east of King Street, and pioneering shopping plazas like Tropical Plaza and Ligoni Plazas. He also introduced Jamaica's first supermarket, Hilo, and spearheaded the creation of Caymanas Park, a modern horse racing track. His vision extended to the hospitality sector, where he established the Tower Isle Hotel, Jamaica's first all-season resort, which eventually became Couples Hotel, an all-inclusive retreat that set the stage for the Superclubs chain. Today, his legacy is carried on by his sons, Lee and Paul Issa, who continue to lead the family's tourism ventures. Another prominent figure is Joseph John Issa, or Joe Issa, who founded the Cool Group. Starting with Cool Oasis petrol station, he transformed the Cool brand into a diverse empire, now comprising over 50 companies in various sectors. From telephone cards to automotive and household products, Joe Issa has significantly expanded the family's business footprint. Together, the Issa family's wealth is estimated at around $300 million, reflecting their broad influence and enduring impact on Jamaica's economy. Up next is the Ashenheim family. The Ashenheim family, with their Jewish heritage, stands out as a powerhouse in Jamaica's business world. They've made their mark by holding influential shares in some of the island's largest and most significant companies. Their business empire includes major stakes in Caribbean Cement and Carreras Jamaica Limited, and they were also part of La Celeste de Mercado, which owns renowned brands like Ray and Nephew Overproof Rum. With their extensive investments across key sectors, the Ashenheim family has built a remarkable fortune, estimated at over $300 million. Their wealth and strategic business moves highlight their central role in shaping Jamaica's economic landscape. The Hendrickson family. With their roots tracing back to Chinese Jamaican heritage, the Hendrickson family has carved out a major presence in the Caribbean business world. They launched the National Baking Company in the 1950s, which has grown into the region's largest bakery. But their ventures don't stop there. They also own the renowned Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. Carl Hendrickson is at the helm of this thriving family enterprise. Together, their diverse business interests and strategic investments have amassed a net worth of approximately $200 million. Up next is a family who has cemented their name in the real estate landscape in Jamaica, the Kerr-Jarrett family. The Kerr-Jarrett family has played a transformative role in shaping Montego Bay's landscape through their real estate developments with Barnett Limited. Their influence extends over more than a century of stewardship, during which they have turned the Barnett estate into a cornerstone of the city's growth and development. One of their most significant contributions is the development of 355,000 square feet of business process outsourcing (BPO) space, positioning them as the foremost BPO developer in Western Jamaica. This massive development has bolstered Montego Bay's status as a major economic hub, attracting global businesses and creating numerous job opportunities. Under the leadership of Mark Kerr-Jarrett, the family has continued to drive innovation and growth in real estate, significantly impacting the city's infrastructure and economy. Their investments are not just limited to BPO spaces. They have also played a key role in other real estate ventures, including commercial and residential properties. With an estimated net worth exceeding $200 million, the Kerr-Jarrett family's financial strength and business acumen are evident. Their ongoing contributions to Montego Bay's urban landscape reflect their commitment to advancing Jamaica's economic development. Their legacy in real estate has solidified their position as influential players in the nation's business community, The Chin family. The Chin family, through their influential Lasco Group, has become a key player in Jamaica's business scene, offering a diverse array of products from food and pharmaceuticals to financial services. Lasco is a staple in many Jamaican households, celebrated for its affordability and quality. Lascelles Chin, the visionary behind Lasco, passed away in 2023, leaving behind a legacy of innovation and growth. His family continues to build on this legacy, with Lasco's extensive portfolio shaping the nation's market landscape. Their impact spans various sectors, underlining their crucial role in driving Jamaica's economic progress. With a net worth estimated at around $200 million, the Chin family's wealth reflects their significant contributions to Jamaica's economy. Their ongoing influence in essential industries highlights their lasting impact on both the local and national levels. Have you ever heard of the Panjam Group? Well, let me introduce you to the Facey family. The Facey family is a powerhouse in Jamaica's business world, thanks to their leadership at Panjam. Under the guidance of Stephen Facey, Panjam has made a substantial mark on the real estate and financial sectors. Their savvy investments have helped shape Jamaica's economic landscape, making them key players in both fields. With their fingers firmly on the pulse of real estate and finance, the Facey family has carved out a strong position in the market. Their influence is evident in their impressive portfolio and their ability to navigate and impact the financial and property sectors. The Facey family's estimated net worth of $200 million reflects their significant contributions to Jamaica's economic growth. Their strategic approach and successful ventures highlight their role as major contributors to the island's financial and real estate arenas. The Hart family. This family has long been a driving force in Jamaica's real estate and tourism industries. With a legacy that dates back to the 1800s, they've been pivotal in shaping Montego Bay into a premier destination. Samuel Hart, the family patriarch, was a significant figure in the local economy, with his businesses ranging from stores to a wharf and extensive land holdings. Fast forward to today, and Mark Hart stands out as a central figure in the family's modern business ventures. In 1994, he co-founded Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited, CPJ, a leading supplier of food and beverages to the hospitality sector. CPJ is now a powerhouse, distributing major global brands and producing its own range of beverages and meat products. With a substantial footprint in both tourism and distribution, the Hart family's influence extends far and wide. Their estimated net worth of $200 million underscores their lasting impact on Jamaica's economic landscape, cementing their role as key players in the country's growth and development. The Levy family. Hailing from Jamaica, the Levy family is at the helm of Jamaica Broilers Group, a powerhouse in the poultry and agribusiness sectors. Under the leadership of Robert Levy, who serves as chairman, the family has transformed the company into a major player in the industry. Their expertise in agriculture has not only shaped the company's success, but also significantly impacted the Jamaican economy. With a substantial net worth estimated at about $150 million, the Levy family continues to be a key force in driving agricultural advancements and business growth in the region. The Clark family. The Clark family's journey with Worthy Park began in 1918, when Frederick Clark acquired the estate, setting the stage for what would become a multi-generational legacy. Nestled in the heart of St. Catherine Parish, Jamaica, Worthy Park has evolved into a significant player in the sugar and rum industries. Each year, the estate churns out an impressive 30,000 tons of sugar and is renowned for its diverse rum offerings, including the well-loved Rum Bar series. Today, the family business is spearheaded by Gordon Clark, who serves as the Managing Director and CEO of Worthy Park Estate Limited. Under his leadership, the Clark family has maintained a robust presence in the industry, with their fortune estimated at around $150 million. This legacy not only underscores their deep-rooted commitment to quality, but also highlights their influential role in Jamaica's agricultural and spirits sectors. The Bicknell family. The Bicknell family is a cornerstone of Jamaica's construction and infrastructure scene, thanks to their leadership at Tank Weld Group. Under Chris Bicknell's guidance, Tank Weld Group has become a key player in providing essential construction materials and logistics solutions. Their work isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about laying the foundation for Jamaica's ongoing development. The family's efforts in driving infrastructure projects have made a significant impact on the country's growth. With their contributions extending across various sectors, the Bicknell family's influence is both broad and deep. Their estimated net worth stands at around $150 million, reflecting their substantial role in shaping Jamaica's economic landscape. The Glenford family. This family has carved out a prominent spot in Jamaica's pharmaceutical and consumer goods industries through their companies CarryMed Limited and Kirk Distributors. Glenn Christian, the current head of these ventures, is at the helm, driving the distribution of crucial medications and everyday products across the island. Their businesses don't just supply goods. They play a key role in ensuring that Jamaicans have access to vital health and retail products. The Christian family's influence on both healthcare and retail sectors is significant, underscoring their importance in the Jamaican economy. With an estimated net worth of $120 million, their financial clout reflects their substantial impact on these critical industries. The Seagar family. The Seagar family's wealth and influence in Jamaica stem from a combination of politics, business, and cultural impact. Edward Seagar, a former Prime Minister of Jamaica, was a central figure in the country's political landscape. His contributions to Jamaican music, through the establishment of West Indies Records Limited, which later became Dynamic Sounds, cemented his legacy in the cultural sphere. Following Edward Seagar's political and business successes, the family's influence extended into various other sectors. Maitre Seagar, a prominent figure in his own right, heads Jamaica Fiberglass Products, a leading company in the manufacturing sector. His involvement in multiple business ventures showcases the family's continued impact on Jamaica's economic landscape. With an estimated net worth of $100 million, the Seagar family's wealth is significant. They maintain a substantial presence in Jamaica's cultural and business sectors, reflecting their enduring influence despite the ebb and flow of direct political power. The Utsn family. The Utsn family's wealth, power, and influence in Jamaica are closely tied to their prominent role in the retail sector through their business, Bashco Trading. Bashco is a major player in the island's retail landscape, known for its wide array of affordable household goods. This extensive reach across Jamaica not only underscores their business acumen, but also highlights their impact on everyday consumer life. Led by Ghassan Utsn, the Utsn family has transformed Bashco into a household name, reflecting their considerable influence in retail. Their ability to offer budget-friendly products has made them a key player in the Jamaican market, catering to a broad customer base and establishing a strong brand presence. With an estimated net worth of $100 million, the Utsn family's financial success is substantial. Their retail empire significantly contributes to the Jamaican economy, demonstrating their economic power. Their influence extends beyond business, as they play a crucial role in providing affordable goods, which affects many facets of daily life across Jamaica. The McConnell family. The McConnell family, of Scottish-Jamaican heritage, holds a prominent position in Jamaica's agricultural and beverage industries through their company, Tradewind Citrus. This enterprise, which produces the well-known True Juice, is a major player in the citrus farming and juice manufacturing sectors. Peter McConnell, the current head of Tradewind Citrus, has continued the family's legacy of leadership and innovation in the industry. Under his guidance, the company has solidified its status as Jamaica's leading citrus producer, significantly influencing the country's agricultural landscape and economy. With an estimated net worth of around $50 million, the McConnell family's wealth and influence are substantial. Their investments and operations not only shape the juice market, but also contribute to Jamaica's broader economic development. Their role extends beyond agriculture, impacting logistics and regional trade as well. This financial and operational reach underscores their importance in both local and national contexts, affirming their status as key figures in Jamaica's business community. Behind the scenes, these influential families play a major role in steering Jamaica's economic policies through savvy campaign funding, strategic lobbying, and key relationships. They work diligently to secure trade advantages, tax breaks, and regulations that favor their business interests. Though they often keep a low profile, their impact stretches far beyond boardrooms. Many of these families quietly fund vital projects in education, healthcare, and community development. creating lasting positive changes in Jamaican society. Their discreet but powerful presence not only drives economic policy, but also supports social welfare. These 21 families embody Jamaica's intricate history and evolving future, wielding influence that profoundly shapes the nation's everyday life. Did you find this video interesting? If you did, be sure to hit that like button.
Alrighty, it is my friend Amorosa back here on Mea Culpa. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, you were number 2. You were my second guest, I think, behind Rosio. Or were you number 3 after Scaramucci?
I think you put me after Mooch, and I still am in my feels about that. So,
yeah. Well, listen. We've got a lot to talk about. And you're just the perfect person for me to talk to. I mean, so thank you for joining us. Let's get started here. So I want to ask
before
you
we get
this.
started, love to the family. I love you.
Yeah, I know, and we love you. So here we go.
Okay.
How would you assess Trump's current re-election strategy compared to the 2016 campaign, especially given his focus on law and order and economic recovery? I mean, you were there. Right there at the beginning, thick and thin, the whole 9 yards. And we're going to talk about like the National Diversity Coalition that I made you, participate in, and you were so instrumental in that. So how would you assess the current re-election strategy?
Before I go into the re-election strategy, I have to take you back to us walking through the empty space in Trump Tower that would become the war room for the campaign.
Yeah.
And you had a vision for that campaign and how it should be structured and how instrumental you were when there was only 13 or 14, I think, people at that time. You laid the groundwork that would become the blueprint for Donald Trump's victory to presidency. Okay.
Well, I'm not proud of that anymore.
No, but I think it's important. I had to lay that down so that we can properly assess his current strategy, because without going back and looking at what started out as something that was supposed to be something positive, a new approach to politics, turned into what it is right now. So in terms of 2016, Michael, you did have a vision for improving the quality of lives for Americans. You did have a vision for making things better for businesses in this country and making sure people didn't have to decide between filling prescriptions and filling their gas tank. I remember these conversations. But now Donald Trump's strategy has gone to a very divisive strategy, something that, like you said, I wouldn't be proud of, you wouldn't be proud of, and most people recognize it's not something that we are proud of as Americans. So his strategy, I believe, at least in the last 2 weeks, because it was different when it was against Biden, his strategy against Kamala is just not to lose, right? His strategy is not one that was built on the 10 principles that we mapped out in that original diversity plan. Do you remember that?
Oh, I sure do.
That doesn't exist anymore. I really think that Donald Trump recognizes that he has come up against a formidable opponent and that, you know, he is faced with a possibility of not returning back to the White House. And as a result, he's panicking. You know, he's not any good when he's panicked, when he's backed into a corner, when he's up against the ropes. And that's exactly where she has him. And so his strategy is thinking that the more attention he gets, the more bombastic that he is, the louder and more repugnant that he is. He thinks that that's the winning strategy. And I'm here to tell you that that just won't work this time. It's no longer a novel.
Right? I mean, the strategy that I tried to lay out early on was one of inclusion. And it was one of the reasons why with Pastor Darrell Scott, I said to him, as you keep going out and you keep talking to people, your audience is almost 100% white. There's no diversity, and hence the formation of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump. And I got you and I got so many others, including the evangelicals, to come on board. Whoever thought that by bringing the evangelicals on, the end result would be an overturning of Roe versus Wade and an imposition upon a woman's, reproductive decision-making freedoms. I mean, this has gotten so out of control. And you're right, his divisive, his vitriolic, his hateful comments, especially towards a woman of color, and a strong woman of color. He doesn't understand. He's completely outmatched. And the schmucks, these fucking dummies that he has around him, they just don't understand. They're so myopic in their thoughts and in their process that they are allowing him and putting him before groups like the National Association of Black Journalists, which we're going to get into. We're clearly going to be talking about that. But I'm with you. What a mistake. The strategy is just all wrong. In fact, let me go one step even further, because I want to talk about this later on, but I think we have to talk about it now. The assassination attempt on Trump. And I start hearing people turning around and talking about it wasn't a bullet that grazed his ear. It was shrapnel either from the teleprompter or from the podium or something else that ended up nicking him because he didn't even take a single stitch. Right? Which is why he doesn't want to release the medical records on it and all. But I tried to explain to him, you can't discount, though, that there was an assassination attempt on the man's life. Now, you who have legitimate religious upbringing and faith, he could have used this, whether he really believes it or not, he could have used this as a major pivoting point in not just his life, but the campaign, where he would come and say, I had to come to Jesus moment. And this entire ordeal with the divisiveness of America, we need to heal, we need to unify, we need to be one. He could have used this ordeal, which would shake the shit out of anybody. But instead, I actually thought at that point that I was going to get this weird phone call from a blocked number, and it would be Trump or one of his people saying, he wants to meet and he wants to apologize for everything that he's done to you, from the incarceration to the unconstitutional remand to the just basically throwing me under the bus. And he intends to do that with a whole bunch of people that he has hurt along the way. But no, goes right back to the strategy. Double down, triple down, etc.
He actually, first of all, I want to acknowledge the firefighter who lost their life on that day at that event because of that sniper's bullet. And to their family, I expressed, such sympathy to them because that has to be hard. But you're absolutely right. Donald squandered an opportunity to pivot and to reflect on just how blessed he was in that moment, that whether they say a half an inch or whatever, he'd be dead. But he said in a rally, and this is when I realized that he just didn't care and he wasn't capable of change. He said, they said, are you changed or do you feel different? He says, no. He said, in fact, I think I've gotten worse. Now, how many people do you know, Michael, who would survive a near-death experience and instead of reflecting and pivoting to gratitude, to change, would pivot and say, in fact, I think I've gotten worse. That shows that you are rotten to the core, that you're just not capable of having the type of emotional maturity that you need to be a leader of this country.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So, I want to go back to the whole thing with the diversity coalition that, again, you were so instrumental in. And I want to ask
I was on
you,
with Bruce last night, just so you know. And
you were
he
on,
said that.
What's that?
Bruce, I was on last night with Bruce Lavelle, and
Why?
he claimed to be one of the founders of the diversity.
No, he wasn't. In fact,
I know.
We dumped him. We dumped him twice, and then he asked twice to come back, and we did. He was not a founder of it in any shape or form. In fact,
it was so funny. I don't even want to give him airtime, but I just have to acknowledge that there are a lot of people pretending to have been instrumental in the creation of that, and you created that, and it was a vision. I think it's important to acknowledge that you had that vision of inclusivity, of bringing all these different groups, nationalities, backgrounds. It didn't matter of your income bracket, of your education. You wanted everyone at the table so that we could reflect what this country looks like. Yeah. But Bruce was not a co-founder, and I just wanted to say that.
And what show were you on?
CNN.
Oh, Jesus Christ, CNN. Unbelievable. They've really gone to the dark side. I mean, this is like a Star Wars episode. So let me ask you this then. What do you see as the key differences that you've observed in Trump's approach to minority outreach this time around, particularly with emphasis on opportunity zones and criminal justice reform, which he, in the interview that he did with the National Association of Black Journalists, claims that he has done more for the Black community than any president ever, and probably even including Abraham Lincoln.
Let me tell you what his strategy is for outreach, and some of his statements are just so insane that they're just downright weird, right? Some of them you can't even just combat. But I think that his strategy is that they have come up with some pathway in their mind to the presidency without gaining any more African-American support. Contrary to popular belief, I don't believe that Donald is doing African-American outreach. I believe that someone has gotten in his ear and convinced them that he can get there without an increase in African-American turnout, particularly African-American male turnout. I'm telling you, I think that is what they've told him, because he has made no concerted effort or meaningful outreach to the African American community. And if you approach the Black community as a monolithic group, then you've already lost the Black community. He said on that stage with NABJ, I have done a lot for the Black. It was the way he said it, the Black population, right? That's how you know that he's looking at groups and numbers as opposed to human beings and families and communities. But when he said the Black population, He was
So-
looking at it from a numeric standpoint,
right.
and not at a very humanistic standpoint. And I'm telling you, he's convinced that he can get there, that he has a pathway to the presidency without an increase in African American turnout.
Right. And without getting a significant, and I mean a very significant portion of the black vote, or of the women, and I mean women of all color, the only pathway that he has is to a cell, because that's when all of these outstanding indictments will be forthcoming. I mean, he's managed to delay it as long as possible, but these will all come back to fruition if, in fact, he doesn't if he doesn't win. And my prediction is it's not just a loss, but I think it's going to be an ass kicking, which then brings me to another question here, right? How do you see Trump's relationship with you personally, right, evolving since your time at the White House? I mean, I remember when I came to the White House and you were like, oh my God, Michael's here. And it was like, you came running straight over, and, you were spending a lot of time with my daughter, that was there. Especially in light of your criticisms in the media, because a lot of people don't remember that they tried to shut you down. Lara Trump tried to shut you down after you left, right? As public liaison, for the White House. They tried to shut you down by paying you off. Remind my listeners about that episode, and whether your relationship has changed, or has it just stayed non-existent? I'm curious.
So, yes, it has changed, and it's because I didn't want anything to do with him. And a lot of people say, oh, it stopped because of him. I'm like, no, it absolutely stopped because of me. He tried to have, as you mentioned, Laura, but there's a whole long list of other surrogates that he had to reach out to try to mend our relationship in terms of our professional work relationship. But the biggest overture, as you stated, came from Laura Trump, who, when the personal appeal did not work to bring me back into the fold, then she did go into offering $20,000 a month forever, right? To do, as she said, absolutely nothing. We'll put you on the payroll. You'll just come back in. And, Donald really wants to have a relationship with you. Donald is not used to, and you can attest to this, Donald, he is not used to having a fight with somebody in his circle and not being able to just make up with them. Remember, he fought with Steve Bannon. They fought, he kicked them out, they battled, he came back in. Gorka, they fought, they came back in. Like these people.
Roger Stone,
Stone, they fight, they come back in. Donald is not used to having those types of disagreements with people, disputes, whatever, and him not being able to charm them back into Trump world. And so, the fact that I, rejected every single overture, including a call from Sean Hannity, I can list a whole lot of people, I don't want to do that, who called and said, oh, just forgive the guy, come back in, and with a whole lot of offers. But I said that it was incredibly important for me and my growth and moving forward, that after 17, 18 years that I had recognized things and discovered things about Donald Trump that I didn't like, I didn't think was good for the country, and I didn't want to be a part of. So I think that he's still in shock that none of those overtures worked, those offers, the payoffs, none of that worked with me, and that I just walked away, completely clean from that world and asked for nothing or need anything from them. So when you ask about the relationship, it is non-existent because I have put up a wall, and not the wall he said he was going to build in Mexico and have them pay for it, but I have built a wall around me to keep Donald from getting to me. And they have tried over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, I remember that you called me and you said to me, "You're not going to believe this shit. I mean, Lara Trump is trying to pay me off," and I was like, "What?" And and they're going to be using RNC funds. Now all of a sudden, you got the fox is in the chicken coop, right? And you think that the chickens aren't going to get slaughtered. I mean, this is somebody that was using before she was even
in the RNC. She was
in the RNC, right? They were using
pay off people,
to keep them quiet and the whole 9 yards. And there was like a multitude of people that they ended up putting, into the RNC. That was like the hideout for people that stepped away, that they were afraid that would come out and be mouthy and talk about Donald Trump and the time with him and the mistakes that he made and his behavior and so on, which, I think you might be the only one. I really do. I think you're the only one that actually...
Because one of those kids that was in the White House wrote a book, and then next thing I know, he went silent, and I reached out to him, and he said he took a job at the RNC. I was like, oh, I know what that is code word for. Yeah, right? I knew what that meant.
Exactly. Exactly. So, to those MAGA morons that are listening to this show or those that are listening to this, program and know people who are MAGA morons, remind them where their dollars are going. When it goes to the RNC, it's going for payoffs from people so that they, remain silent and not talk truth to power. That's where your money's going. So hopefully it's considered
and they put it in writing. What's crazy is they put it in writing. They put it in email. They'll text it. It's the craziest thing. It's documented how many people they've offered RNC funds to remain silent.
Because they don't believe that the rules apply to them. But so obviously this is going to be a very, so it's a rhetorical type of question. You think Trump's base has expanded or contracted since his last campaign? Particularly, what I really want to focus in on is suburban and rural voters.
Well, let's dissect what you call his base, right? Because you call them MAGA morons. I'm not going to call them that, right? I know that that's how you've characterized them, but I think that people are entitled to choose the people that they want to follow. There are consequences for following those folks, but I think that Americans are entitled to that. That's what makes our country great. There's a base of those folks that are part of the MAGA movement. But remember in 2016, 2017, there were a group of people who were just curious. They were curious about the circus that was Donald Trump. They wanted to see more entertainment. They thought it was like subscribing to another season of The Apprentice. And I don't believe, and we saw this with his battle against Biden, I don't believe that those folks are still with him. We know this because we saw the exit polling from the last election, that they had defected away from him.
Elevate every morning with Tommy John's second skin underwear, because what you put in your pants can make or break your day. And the luxurious support of second skin guarantees that everything will go smoothly. And we need smooth. So when you wear Tommy John, you're much more comfortable. And when you're more comfortable, you can do everything better. Tommy John's stylish and soft second skin underwear has dozens of comfort innovations, like a supportive contour pouch and breathable, lightweight, moisture-wicking fabric with 4 times the stretch of competing brands. With over 20 million pairs sold and thousands of 5-star reviews, guys everywhere love their Tommy Johns. I mean, that's why Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics, like this one who raves, the most comfortable boxer briefs ever. There's no downside. Buy one pair and you'll never want to wear any other underwear again. I mean, I've been trying different brands of trunks for the past few months while wearing a similar product for the past 3 years. Second Skin is by far the most comfortable I've ever worn, hands down. I mean, that's my opinion, hands down. They are the most comfortable. And I know because they're soft and they hold you right where you need to be. So look, I'm certainly one who wears them. I am one who recommends them. Tommy John is the way that you want to go. Plus, here's another part. Plus, your most valuable assets are always covered with Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. So get 20% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. Save 20% on second skin at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. That's TommyJohn.com/Cohen. See the site for details.
And they continue to move towards the center, not towards Donald. So your question about whether or not his base is expanded, the MAGA movement is going to remain. Those folks are going to remain solid. But unless Donald Trump is able to pull a lot of those undecided voters into the fold, he's not going to get anywhere near the White House again. And he has been failing. And with the selection of J.D. Vance, he has alienated even more of those undecided independent voters, particularly, what did they call them? Single women with cats?
No,
right?
childless cat ladies.
Childless woman, cat ladies. That's the independent, rural, suburban woman that they actually need. So I just don't understand. What do you think? Do you think the rumors are true that it was Don Jr. that
I know for a fact it was. It was Don Jr. along with Peter Thiel that made the pitch for J.D. Vance. And I don't know what the relationship is between J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel, but Peter Thiel has been funding Vance for a very long time. And somehow or another, there's something going on also. And it's got to be financial between Peter Thiel and Don Jr., where he convinced Don, and it's not that hard to convince Don of anything, especially if there's a buck involved in it. Right. That J.D. Vance is the right guy who can help to bring, the election around to Donald Trump because of his age or his positions, and that he's more MAGA than I don't know. But it was Peter Thiel and Don Jr. that made.
Well, it's going to come at a big price, no matter what deal they cut with Peter Thiel to promise to finance whatever support. He is paying a significant price for that choice. I believe that choice is worse than even the Sarah Palin selection.
Oh yeah.
I just, every day something new is coming out that is repulsive that J.D. Vance has said about some marginal group, about some diverse group of people. He has alienated all of the people that Donald had been trying to reach out to bring into his base. And it's just going to get worse because remember, October surprises are my favorite surprises. I don't even think the worst of what we know about J.D. Vance has come out and will not come out until weeks before the election.
And remember too, again, it goes right back. He had the greatest opportunity to take advantage of the assassination attempt. And whether it was a bullet that grazed him with a shrapnel, as I believe, it's irrelevant. There was an assassination attempt. He could have had that come to Jesus moment where he said, all this has to stop. It all has to stop. And he could have pivoted and he could have tried to make a claim as to why the independent voters should be voting for him. Whether he believed it or not, he could have done it. Just very stupid strategy by just a group of people who are so, again, myopic in their
But who do you think he should have selected instead of Vance? Who do you think would have helped him in any way?
Well, the question is, would they have accepted the nomination? Or
Tim Scott would have accepted. Vivek would have accepted.
Tim Scott is as bad as J.D. Vance. You need to go with somebody like, could you imagine if he would have brought on somebody like a Liz Cheney? Could you imagine he had or who did
Nikki Haley?
Or Nikki Haley. By the way, you will acknowledge that Donald does have very good political instinct. We saw that in the 2016. He does. Do you know that his choice, he was going with Nikki Haley up until the point.
Really?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
I
heard it from an insider. He was going with Nikki Haley until the Peter Thiel, Donald Trump Jr., involvement and their insistence that it be J.D. Vance in order to win this election. And they got into his ear. And with Donald Trump, the last person who breathes into his ear owns the brain. Yeah. And that's the mistake. He was going with Nikki Haley. He could have gone.
He would be doing well if he had her. If he had Nikki Haley right now going toe-to-toe with Vice President Harris and whoever she selects, he'd have a running shot
I
at
agree.
this.
I agree. Totally.
And now he's saying the vice presidential choice
Doesn't do
doesn't
anything
matter.
right. I mean, it's just.
I disagree. I disagree.
It's of course he disagree. He's only saying it because Vance is such a putz, and he's making even bigger mistakes than Donald is. I mean, look, let me take it to you this way. Recent polls are now showing that Kamala Harris is leading Trump in almost all the key battleground states. Whereas before, when it was Biden-Trump, Trump was leading by 2, 3, 4 points. Yeah. She's now leading, I think, in Michigan by plus 11. In Michigan, plus 11.
Well, they're saying it's because she has a honeymoon period, that it's going to die down.
Right. They keep calling it a sugar rush. They got a million names for it. So far, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. And the more they keep putting their foot in their mouth, the more that I guess the honeymoon stays active, right?
Yeah.
How do you think that this might influence his campaign strategy going forward?
Well, I think that he is going to avoid debating her, Michael. I don't think he's going to step in the ring with her. He saw the consequences that President Biden paid for having a dismal debate performance. We saw what he did on the stage with the National Association of Black Journalists. We know that he can't take it when somebody just continues to fire off at him. So I think his strategy is going to come up with every excuse in the book to avoid stepping in the debate arena with her, because he knows that she's formidable. He's called her stupid. He's called her DEI. He's called her uneducated. He complained that she only took her 2 times to pass the bar. But when you stand next to a person on a debate stage, the scrutiny is completely different. And he knows that when he is compared to her, he's going to look like a dogged, ragged, old man. And it's not going to be a good split screen at all.
Yeah, totally.
So from a strategy standpoint, he's never going to. I just want your viewers to recognize Donald J. Trump is not going to get in the debate stage.
I mean, I think he's already said that, hasn't he? Hasn't he already said that he's not?
No, he actually changed. He changed his perspective.
Oh, yeah?
He said once he decides on her vice presidential nominee, and then he threw some random stuff about Obama in there, then he would make a decision about whether or not he would debate her. So he has not closed the door on debating Vice President Kamala Harris.
Okay. So I want to go back and I want to sort of combine 2016, our time together,
okay,
to 2024. And just imagine there you are sitting in my office. We're about 50 feet away from Donald. All right.
Yeah.
And we're having a conversation about, let me ask you a question. What's your thoughts about Trump deciding to even attend the National Association of Black Journalists Conference, this interview, given especially how he has this contentious relationship with not just the press, but also communities of color? How would that conversation have gone?
You're not going to like this, but I would actually advise him to go, but take a different posture. I think it was a missed opportunity. I think that he should have shown some contrition about his past statements and name calling and vitriol towards African-American journalists. I think he could have endeared himself, because Michael, when he wants to be, Donald Trump can be charming when he wants to be. It's shocking when he does it, but he can do it. And with the right preparation and coaching, Donald Trump could have taken that opportunity to make inroads. But he would have had to have the right talking points. He would have had to have the right people around him. And he would have had to have it feel like a safe space. It sounds like he walked in hot And the first question should have probably came from Harris Faulkner instead of from the ABC reporter. But under the right circumstances, I would have advised him to go to that particular event, but to make an attempt, at least, to try to make inroads with them by being contrite.
Yeah.
That's what I would have advised.
So I probably would have gone a totally different route, and we would have this, we'd be having this conversation across the desk, and I would say, yeah, but oh, let me say this. You know as well as I that Donald has never apologized for anything. I mean, look at
one time. Yes, he did.
Oh yeah, what was that?
One time, and you were helpful in this.
Oh yes.
Remember, we convinced him that he had to look at what he did with Central Park 5.
Yep.
And this was an opportunity for him to show contrition. And you guys fought over it. And finally, he went back and forth, and he gave that really brisk, harsh statement.
Yep.
But he said, I believe that they were innocent. And that was it.
Yep.
That was
tough. That was tough. Yeah, that was
but it was
that was the tough one.
It was about the Central Park 5.
Yeah.
So he did one time. One time.
I would have said to him, I think what we need to do is we need to call upon the 150 Black evangelical pastors, and I think we need to bring them back to Trump Tower, and we need to do some sort of a meet. We need to do some sort of like another meeting or something like that prior to you doing this conference, because right now your relationship with the Black community is really bad. It was almost, it's as bad as it was with the Hispanic community after he descended the escalator, calling Mexicans drug addicts, rapists, murderers. But there are some that are a few good, right? I want to actually concentrate on one specific question that came up by Rachel Scott. And I'm glad that she was the one right out of the rip to come straight at him with it, because he's looking for Hannity softballs. And you're not getting that from Rachel Scott. She's calling it. You're there before this association of Black journalists. You opened yourself up to questions. So if you watch the entire thing, as I did, and I know that you did, what do you think that the atmosphere was like in that conference room, especially when Trump responded to the remark about not knowing Kamala Harris was Black? I mean, we heard the roar of the attendees. What was your take?
I think that Donald prepared and chose that particular venue to drop that particular nugget. And I know that he realized the implications and the impact of that statement. He basically went into a Black space. He played in their face, and then he pulled out a question about her race, right? That was all strategic. 1, 2, 3. In terms of the atmosphere, I talked to several people. I used to be a member of NABJ when I was in broadcasting, who talked about how a lot of people actually left. They walked out on that. There were lots of boos and jeers, but apparently there was a constituency of folks that were there to support Donald. Shockingly enough, I don't know if that was pre-planned or if they packed some folks in the room with him. And that section of the room, the section that you can hear cheering. But overall, I understand that a significant number of people left the room and walked out or stood up and turned their backs on him because they could not believe that he came into their space, in their face, and he was attacking her in that way.
I mean, it's crazy. So I actually pulled the transcript, into it. I mean, we tried to do that. I mean, he turns around and he says, and let me go a step, actually here. So he goes, I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much. And you know, when I say this, historically, black colleges and universities were out of money. Again, it has nothing to do with anything. He goes on, they were stone cold broke, and I saved them. Thank God for him. Right? And I gave them a long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further, because that wasn't just enough. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretenses. All right. He then goes, I mean, this is some of the greatest things. I mean, that was the part that I was referring to, though, about Kamala being black, fell under the question of DEI. And Donald does not know what DEI even stands for. So as a safety crutch, he says, define it for me. And they go on and they have this whole thing. But Rachel Scott says, I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman? So he says, stupidly, well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time, indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage. And she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black. And now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know. Is she Indian or is she black? I mean, I don't even know. And it's wrong for me to kind of instill my gasp, the gasp that I let out when I was watching this as a white male. So I'm going to ask you, my dear friend, what was your take when you were listening to that? Especially, you know Donald like 18 years.
My question really, it raised more questions. Is Donald Trump German or is he Scottish? Or is he Swedish, as he alleged in his book, The Art of India? Right. Even though his family's not from Sweden, right? My reaction was not surprised. I'm sorry. I knew that he had a stunt up his sleeve because Donald always has a stunt up his sleeve. So I knew. And then when he said it, I said, that's it. That was the bomb that he wanted to drop in that room at that moment. I was trying to figure out what he was going to do, what he was going to announce, what magic trick, that he was going to abracadabra. And that moment was the moment that I knew that he had up his sleeve and he was ready to kind of spring onto them in that space.
1 second. What's the strategy? Because it goes right back to the very first question that I asked you about how this campaign strategy is different than 20. What strategy can anybody think is a positive strategy when you are attacking a black woman and saying that I didn't know she was black?
Because, Michael, remember, let's take it back to 2015, 2016, wall-to-wall coverage of everything Donald did, everything he said. This was the first time in a long time, except for the assassination, where Donald knew he was going into an event where there would be wall-to-wall coverage. He knew that they would be just hanging on to every single word he uttered. And he seized that moment, and he took the moment to just drop a huge bomb, an explosion in that room, which has ricocheted around the world. I mean, I looked at the apps, the headlines around the world app, and it was on the covers of most newspapers. He knew exactly what he was doing. He did not go there to gain more voters, Michael. He didn't go there to make inroads with the black community. He didn't go there to announce some new diversity policy or cultural advancement or anything. He went there simply to gain the momentum back into his direction, to get the ball back into his court, to get the camera and the attention on him and off her, because there is nothing but Kamala Harris mania all over the country, and he can't deal with it.
Okay,
that was the purpose.
Right.
That was it.
But there's I just don't see a
You think that's a
beneficial
selling
strategy.
policy?
I think
That-
it's
you
a
think
terrible
it's selling-
strategy.
But no, Michael, think about it. The man was shot, 2 weeks ago? It was the assassination, and it was all everybody talked about. Today, is anyone talking about his assassination? No, because we know that the news cycle moves on. And guess what? The National Association of Black Journalists, as horrible as this performance was, in 2 weeks, we will not be talking about this. In 2 weeks, we'll be talking about Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick. Am I right?
Yes, but
This will be a distant memory.
But I know for a fact that Black women will never forget that moment when he questioned Kamala Harris's identity and background.
I'll never forget.
I don't think they'll ever forget it.
I will never personally, as a proud graduate of Howard University, the same
congrats.
university that she went to, as a proud African-American woman, right? I will never forget what Donald Trump did there. But a lot of the electorate will, unfortunately.
You really think that?
Yes, Michael, no one's talking about half the things this man did in the last month, let alone what they'll be talking about in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, everybody will be obsessing over who Vice President Kamala Harris selected to serve as her vice president. That will be all the talk when they go into Chicago, and that's what we will talk about. No one will be talking about top of mind what Donald Trump said at the National Association. Now, I will keep reminding folks, you'll keep reminding folks, and a lot of people will keep bringing it up. But that's the only way that it's going to live on beyond the next thing that he's going to do, and the next stunt, and the next vitriol he spews, and the assault.
But you made the perfect point here, which is that nothing that these things are doing is creating one single additional voter to come for him, which again is a losing strategy in 2024.
Black voter, because Michael, I think that in their calculations, they believe that they have a path to the presidency without going through Black women, without gaining one single additional Black vote. I'm telling you how they're thinking.
I think there are plenty of white people, but I think there are plenty of white people that are as insulted, with Donald's comments, as the next guy, or
I agree.
woman,
I agree.
And I think it's just, again, if we're looking for a country that's united and equitable for all, these sort of comments, it just not only do they show how ignorant he is, but also racist. And it's just, I mean, do I think it's a large number? Yeah, I don't know what the number is or isn't. All I know is in a thinly, decided race, which everybody keeps saying that this is going to be, these are really extremely important because he couldn't stop there. So Rachel Scott, asks him again, sir, it's a direct question. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some would tell me she is? And Trump turns around and he goes, I really don't know. I really don't know. And then he goes to the accordion hands, right? Could be. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over here. Harris is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length, and we had a great interview, I think. And I heard you got very good ratings on that interview. I mean, he can't even acknowledge that she is not. And I just think I just think it goes to the very foundation of, or I should say, the lack of substance that Donald brings to the table.
Do you know what DEI stands for in my space, not diversity, equity, and inclusion? When I hear DEI, I hear didn't earn it, DEI. He's basically saying she didn't earn it.
Right.
And when you put it in that context, when he says she's a DEI vice president, he's saying that she didn't earn it.
But they go
When
even.
he says that he says that because Biden dropped out and she became the nominee, and he's a DEI nominee, he's saying she didn't earn it.
They go
That's
even
the
worse.
undertone.
Oh, they
What's
go
what's
even
worse?
worse. They go even worse than that. They claim, and there's a whole slew of Trump's acolytes, these sycophantic assholes, that are talking about how that she used sex and so on, sexual favors, in order to advance herself throughout her career. That is pervasive all over social media. All right.
So I must not be in those spaces. I've seen one or two things, but maybe because I haven't. But of course, Michael, I block a lot of those bots and those nasty things. And so maybe I have filtered so much that I haven't heard a lot of it. Maybe you have, and maybe the way they target ads towards a white male, maybe they are targeting and sending that stuff to you. In my space, I might be getting rainbows, glitter, and sparkles in my inbox, but I'm not getting a lot of that. I have seen one or two statements about it, but it's not resonating in the communities, in the spaces that I'm, operating in the messaging that I'm hearing. But I know that it's out there.
Yeah,
right?
it is out there.
I think that it's echoing in the maggot universe, but may not be as pervasive in the communities that are, I think, a little more mature and evolved. And quite frankly, Donald should be the last person, and his supporters should be the last person to talk about someone's sexual past when he has been found liable of raping a woman in a department store dressing room.
Yeah.
And having to pay, what is it, $80 million?
93.
How can you talk when you're on the hook for $93 million because of sexual assault? I'm sorry, that is weird. And I'm sorry to use the buzzword of the day, but that's weird.
Yeah, it is very weird. But can I say something else that's weird? Can I go one step further here and say something that's weird?
Sure.
Right. So Trump, during this NABJ interview, claimed that, and the quote is, immigrants are taking black jobs. All right. And by the way, you're talking to a group of journalists. So all of a sudden, I'm just trying to figure this out. And then, of course, she presses him on. Well, what does that mean? What does black job mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
I don't know. All right. Is he trying to say low pay or some menial type of labor? You understand that you are sitting in a room that is filled with black journalists from all the major papers and all of the newspapers that aren't major, right? So are you trying to tell me that these immigrants who are sneaking across the border are somehow taking black jobs? Are they taking Tim Scott's senator's seat? Are they taking Kamala Harris's vice presidential seat? Are they taking Congresswoman Crockett's seat? Whose seat are they taking? What job are they taking that he's referring to? And of course, he had no answer for it. But I wanted to ask you, how do you interpret this comment? And what impact do you think that it'll have on his support, again, amongst black voters?
When Donald said black jobs, what wasn't said in that is this undertone of racism.
Yep.
And the racism, it reckons back to when this country was divided and when segregation still existed. Hell, it might even go all the way back to slavery, because black jobs back in slavery were slaves who had to do really demeaning manual labor, picking cotton, right? Working out in the fields. That's what Donald Trump is talking about. He is making a racist statement when he says and talks about black jobs, because in the land of the free, home of the brave, all jobs are available to all people in this country, right? If you want to be a doctor, You can be an African American doctor. You can be a Latin doctor. You can be it doesn't matter if your life is on the line and you're faced with a life or death situation. Does it matter what race that person is as long as they know how to do the work? So Donald Trump was taking it all the way back to his racist roots of when African Americans were picking cotton and doing menial labor and menial jobs that he sees as demeaning. It goes back to a story that was shared that Donald Trump didn't want Black accountants working in his casinos, that he wanted only certain types of people counting his money. These are statements that he was alleged to have said. I don't want any N-words counting my money, is what he's alleged to say. So he does.
Yeah. I mean, and you and I have had this conversation before, and I wrote about it in my book, Disloyal, where he didn't want Randall Jackson, who was in the first season of The Apprentice, right? And he made it to the finals.
Oh, Kwame.
Kwame. He didn't want, he goes, and he made that statement, which, I don't want a black fag working for me. And someone who were like, what? Wasn't he like a Harvard graduate or something like that? I mean, he was brilliant, and he maneuvered brilliantly. And actually, I had several conversations with him over the course of that, and I was like, you could tell somebody who is highly educated and highly functional, and he certainly was. But that was always the story that that came out of Trump's mouth, and I'm just blown. He never ceases to amaze me. And again, it goes right back to, for example, the assassination attempt. But actually, I wanted just to ask you this.
Sure.
The media's portrayal of Trump's remarks, especially those that are considered racially insensitive or out of touch. How do you see it influencing the perception and potentially affecting the campaign's outreach now to minority communities? Do you think that after this NABJ, that for the next 95 days, which is until the election, that there is no outreach at all to the Black community? That he's basically, as you said before, washed his hands and said that we have a path to win the election without the Black community? Because I've looked at the numbers. I'm a studier of numbers, and I don't see it. I don't see the pathway without the Black community. And I've been saying all along, between the Black community and women, they're having a majority of both. I don't see an electoral win here.
Yeah, but Donald is going to make another appearance in a predominantly with a Black audience in a Black community. He is going to go to a Black church, right? Because remember, that was the playbook that we put into place early on in the campaign. And he's going to go dust off some of those plays, and he is going to have a pastor who's willing to bring him into his church.
Okay. Right.
Mark my words.
Right.
He's going to do that. So you're asking me, is he going to make any more appearances in the Black community? My answer to you is yes.
Okay.
Because he is into stunts. And will it have an impact? No. Right. It will not help him get any closer to that victory, but he's still going to do it because he knows he has to do it. Will it be effective? The answer is absolutely no.
But Omarosa, let me say this. When we did the one in Cleveland with Pastor Darrell Scott, who was my co-founder of the National Diversity Coalition, not the bullshit artist Bruce Lavelle. One of the, and I hope you put him in his place when you said it wasn't you.
I did. You gotta watch the clip.
If you can get it for me and send it, I'll post it. When we did that, and I spoke, and I was preaching before the New Spirit Revival Church, its audience, I think there were 2 white people in the audience. The rest of the
serve you at 6039 Kimberly Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale. Bravo's team is dedicated to providing its customers with superior customer service, fresh high-quality products, excellent prices, and great savings with their weekly specials. Stop in for fresh fish, meat, bakery items, fruits and vegetables, international items, a wide assortment of beers and wines. Bulk items are also available. Send money to your loved ones around the globe with Western Union. Visit our full-service deli for hot, delicious meals that are ready to go. Everything you want is right here at Bravo. Open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 6039 Kimberly Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale. 954-970-3060. That's 954-970-3060. Bravo Supermarket, your one-stop shopping experience.
This is UTSN. It is 9 o'clock. Oh, yeah. Sunday evening jam, but we're on YouTube now. Yeah, it is UTSN Broadcasting Network on YouTube. Okay? It is UTSN Broadcasting Network on YouTube. Yeah? On your Android phone, it is UTSN. On your iPhone, Uptown News. On your television, it is Caribcast, C-A-R-I-B-C-A-S-T, Caribcast. Yes, and you will find the UTSN app right there, okay? Also online is utsnnetwork.com. Let's go back to Jamaica for some politics, huh?
It's very concerning that the decision was communicated in a letter from May 2023. It made reference to Section 14(5) of the Corruption Prevention Act, which is a section that creates the offense of illicit enrichment. A formal notice was, I think, dated August 18, which made specific reference to the elements of that offense, which is that you have assets which can't be supported by your declared income. And that warrants a request to explain yourself as to how you acquired those assets. He has known this from August last year. So for over a year, he has not come to the country and said, I am under investigation for illicit enrichment, even though the illicit 6 and the fact that there were these investigations of 6 parliamentarians, which became 8 later on, was well known. It's very concerning that the decision was communicated in a letter from May 2023. It made reference to Section 14(5) of the Corruption Prevention Act, which is a section that creates the offense of illicit enrichment. A formal notice was, I think, dated August 18, which made specific reference to the elements of that offense, which is that you have assets which can't be supported by your declared income. And that warrants a request to explain yourself as to how you acquired those assets. He has known this from August last year. So for over a year, he has not come to the country and said, I am under investigation for illicit enrichment, even though the illicit 6 and the fact that there were these investigations of 6 parliamentarians, which became 8 later on, was well known as something that was being discussed constantly in the media and elsewhere. So it was, to my mind, a serious deception of the people to pretend or to hold back the fact that you as Prime Minister were one of the persons being investigated. So this is a big problem in terms of his credibility, his trustworthiness, and I don't think that we can have a leader of our country who has lost the trust and confidence of the people. This is why we're doing this, because we feel it's important that the people of Jamaica understand the seriousness of what is before us. And so the necessary decisions can be made to move the country forward.
I want to bring Member of Parliament Julian into the discussion. The IC in the report stated that the Director of Investigation was unable to arrive at a conclusion because he did not have access to Holness's personal expenses over the relevant period, along with unresolved questions around the companies that he is connected to. to?
Well, what he said specifically is that the Prime Minister refused to provide details of his personal expenses over the period of the investigation. And he could not conclude definitively on the issue of illicit enrichment because he needs to match income to expenditure. So here it is that you have a situation where the investigator is prevented from doing his work because the information he needs from the Prime Minister has not been made available to him. He goes on further to say that there are sources of funding for the 3 or 4 companies that the Prime Minister is involved with that he cannot ascertain where the funds have come from. And that is the main reason he has made a referral to the Financial Investigation Division, which investigates financial crimes.
One of the assets that you spoke of a while ago was an asset that Holness acquired in 2019. And the source of funding for that asset remains unexplained, Senator Bunting.
This is actually one of the more disturbing features, because what the investigation of the Integrity Commission has revealed is that funds were used from a charity. It's called Positive Foundation, Positive Jamaica Foundation, a charity which, by definition would have charitable purposes. And some funds in the region of approximately $32,000 US dollars were diverted to pay for a bond in the name of Mr. Holness.
Or his company, his personal company.
And I believe at some point it may have been either in his or his personal holding company, which he owns 100%. And it remained in that form for the life of the bond until it was called. And it was only after the bond had been redeemed and that transaction was now, in a sense, extinct.
Is it
reasonable? Closed. That, just allow me to finish, that upon questioning by the Director of Investigation that an attempt was made to repay that charitable foundation. So approximately 4 years had elapsed when the funds from the charitable foundation had been used to partially pay for a bond in the name of or for the benefit of Mr. Holness.
And the interest payments on the bond went into him or his personal company's account. And it's only when the Integrity Commission itself looked into this thing and said, hey, but some of the funding for this, 32,000 US of the 94,000 US cost of the bond, came from a charity with which Mr. Holness is very closely associated and is a director. That the necessary rearrangements of the thing were done and the money was returned to the charity. So for several years, he declared that bond as being his or his company's, and he received the payments under that bond for his or his company's account.
So it is not reasonable to assume that the Prime Minister would not have known that the entirety of the funds that were used to pay for the bond were attributed to him. It's not reasonable.
He had been getting statements regularly, which showed that the entirety of the amount was in a bond in his name or his company.
And the documentation he signed with the broker that he bought the bond through reflected that him or his company as being the purchaser of the bond. But he made the arrangements for the 32,000 to be paid by the charity into the purchase account to buy the bond.
And leader, this is in the context of legislation which was introduced to prevent exactly that with charities.
If I was a donor to this charity, and was to learn that the charity's resources, which are intended to be for charitable purposes, helping poor people, helping people who are sick or needy, were being used to purchase a financial asset for the Prime Minister or his personal company, I would be very upset about it. And that I know as a fact that foundation receives funding not only from Jamaica but from outside as well. So it's a very serious matter.
Right. A part of the discussion that we have noted in the public domain is where the Director of Corruption Prosecution ruled that there is no evidence to support that the Prime Minister would have omitted willfully and intended to omit information from his statutory declarations. So there are two separate investigations that emanated from the Prime Minister's statutory declarations. I want you to discuss that first and tell us what were those two separate investigations. One relates to the omission of information for which the Director of Corruption Prosecution ruled, and then the second investigation was around illicit enrichment.
Well, I would say on the 4 accounts, there were 2 related to his parents put his name on, one with a former constituency manager and another one. Now, it's important to look at the detail. The Director of Investigation said he brought to Mr. Holness's attention on 3 occasions that his name was in fact on the accounts. And in spite of that, Mr. Holness did not declare those as part of his declaration. Secondly, and even more importantly, the Director of Investigation found that in 2 of those accounts, monies were flowing through the accounts from accounts solely controlled by Mr. Holness and to accounts solely controlled by Mr. Holness. So in essence, he's saying Mr. Holness said he knew nothing about these accounts, but funds are flowing in the region of millions of dollars. Deposits put in today, taken out the following week. 2 accounts controlled solely by him. So the question is, was Mr. Holness being truthful when he said, well, it's my parents' account and I don't know anything about it?
You know, I'm seeing a comment here on social media that we just bad mind over this side and that we don't want the Prime Minister to get rich. Is that the case, Comrade Leader?
Well, it's nothing to do with whether the Prime Minister should be rich or not. That's not the issue. The issue is to do with compliance with the requirements of the law relating to integrity. And the statutory declarations that were made in this particular instance omitted certain bank accounts, which at the end of the year, at the date of the declaration, had fairly modest balances, but through which much larger sums had flowed from Mr. Holness's accounts and to Mr. Holness's accounts. And that was a basis upon which the Director of Investigations referred it to the corruption prosecutor to say, was this a deliberate falsehood on the declaration? Ultimately, she ruled that that could not be proved, and there was no prosecution to flow from that. But this was a relatively small matter in the scheme of this report. The bulk of this report is to do with the companies that Mr. Holness operates, has invested in, or is a director of, assets that they have, the very high volume of transactions between them, and the fact that they are filing tax returns which have suggested that they're dormant or they have no taxable transactions at all, and also investments that have been made using the charities money, and we've discussed that already. So there's a lot in this report which suggests that we need to get to the bottom of this matter. And the decision of the Integrity Commission is that it should be referred to the FID for further investigation, because as Julian said, they can't take it. The Integrity Commission can't take it further because Mr. Holness refused to provide information that they required to complete the investigation. I mean, if you 3,600 transactions passing through 28 bank accounts, Mr. Holness was operating in his own name or the companies that he controlled, 28 bank accounts. And over a 3-year period, 3,600 transactions. This is the Prime Minister who was running the country at the time with some of the most important agencies and public bodies reporting to him. Yet he was conducting these very elaborate financial arrangements.
That's 1,200 transactions a year, which works out to be about, divided by, if you call it 360, that is what? 3-4 transactions a day.
Well, it's only banking days.
No, banking days.
So it's 250. Right. It's 4 transactions.
4 transactions a day among the 28 accounts. I mean, most people have 2, 3, 4 accounts. How you keep track of that is...
What I wanted to respond to, because I think among the transactions, what is interesting is that 20 cardless cash deposits totaling 4,565,000 were made to Holness's JN bank account between May and July of 2020. The depositor is unknown.
Yes.
And what was the explanation given? reimbursement from Norman Brown, shareholder of Estate Bridge. Senator Boynton, is this a reasonable explanation?
But I can tell you, as someone who has spent a large part of my career in the financial sector, that type of transaction is what bankers or financial sector employees are trained to raise a red flag about. It matches what would be called structuring, where you break a larger transaction, in this case a total of 4.6 million, into small transactions which are, or smaller transactions which are below the reporting threshold. However, one of the things you're also trained to do is to look for what are called high-risk customers. And so, for example, all of us who are in parliament or in politics are referred to as politically exposed persons, or PEPs, and should attract closer scrutiny than the average customer. So this series of transactions would match what is called structuring, and you're trained in your anti-money laundering training, all frontline staff of the banks, the compliance people, etc., to look out for these transactions. Not necessarily illegal, but it's a red flag. And then an obligation would be on the bank to either report it to the FID as a suspicious set of transactions, or to get a plausible explanation from the account holder. In this case, two sources of these series of 20 cash transactions. One was that Mr. Honus's business partner in Estate Bridge and the chairman of UDC owed him, HAJ. And Housing Association of Jamaica owed him some money. But to me, to suggest that somebody at the level of a chairman of UDC, who I'm certain either has a checkbook or an online banking facility or a banking app, is going to get up from his desk somewhere close to 20 times over the period of 3 months and go to an ATM to lodge cash, it doesn't seem plausible to me. The other source was rent of a Mona property, I think it was referred to. No, unless you're operating some sort of back road operation, usually rent is collected once a month. So that would, I imagine, only account for a small number of the total transactions. So even if that were the case, there's still a lot to be explained, and it would, and I can speculate that this is probably one of the reasons why a referral has been made to the FID. It's I think that's a fair comment, because every person who is trained in anti-money laundering or sensitized to money laundering would quickly be able to pick up that this is one of those red flag transactions.
That transaction disturbed me for the reasons that Peter outlined, and because also, even with attorneys, there are certain obligations now which you have, because you're supposed to look at a transaction like that and actually report on it. Now, the other transaction which concerned me was the one where the account was opened at NCB. Mm-hmm. It was opened with no money in it. And I didn't know you could open an account with no money in it. A couple of days later, there was a deposit of a little over $143,000 US, which came from SSL. Mm-hmm. And in the context of the discussions which we have been having about SSL, I believe that the Prime Minister needs to address this and explain how and why that money came into his account from SSL. It was deeply concerning to me, and I'm sure that it must be deeply concerning to all the people who not only lost money, but know people who lost money, and the number one concern is what happened to borrowed money. Now, I'm not casting any aspersions on the situation. I'm just simply saying that the Prime Minister has to have a level of political sensitivity, and he has a duty to come to the country and explain some of these transactions to which we have been alerted by this report.
And Comrade Leader, At the press conference that was held last week, you raised the issue of tax compliance and why it is troubling. For our viewers who might not have read the report or understand the issues surrounding tax compliance, I want you to explain it for them and why it's a problem.
Well, the report indicates that the tax returns for Mr. Holness's private companies, in one called Imperium that he owns 100% of, and the others that are referred to in the report, for the 2021 year of assessment financial year, they filed nil returns, meaning that they had no tax. They declared no taxable income and no taxable expenses, tax deductible expenses. Now, that the report says is inconsistent with the information provided to the Integrity Commission by Mr. Holness, which shows that these companies were in fact very active. They had receipts, they had expenditures. As I've said, over 400 million of transactions over the period was passing between these companies, to and fro. So, and the report makes specific reference to items of income that were earned during the period. So the report makes reference to a provision in the Income Tax Act, which makes it a criminal offense not to accurately report one's taxable income when you're filing returns. So this is another very serious matter. You know, the Prime Minister is the head of the government, and you know, you should not be filing tax returns which are not consistent with the reality of the transactions of those companies. So this is a big issue as well.
Some of the concerns that we have seen in the public domain is that these two institutions to which the report from the Integrity Commission is referred to, Tax Administration Jamaica and the Financial Investigation Division, they both fall under the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. The Minister reports to the Prime Minister. There's a sense of public concern that there might be interference or obstruction of the investigation. Senator Bunting, is that a legitimate position for members of the public to take?
Absolutely. The Prime Minister uses his own standard. When his ministers got into trouble, Wheatley, Royal Reid,
Floyd Green.
Floyd. Well, no.
Floyd was a little different.
That was a little different. He got into trouble.
He was put in
St. Elizabeth.
He was put in an article.
J.C. Hutchinson.
J.C. Hutchinson. He told them they had to step aside. They had to leave the cabinet because it would not have been appropriate for them to remain and perhaps and have the risk or the perception that they could obstruct the investigation. Now, there's no minister in a stronger position to obstruct an investigation than the Prime Minister himself. He, for example, is going to determine who the replacement Minister of Finance will be. He, under whose portfolio the FID falls. The FID right now does not have a permanent chief technical director, I believe the post is called, or technical director. The head of FID was Selvin Hay, who retired a couple months ago. So it only has an acting head now. So there is not even any security of tenure for who is there. So the Minister of Finance is going to be very carefully selected. Let me just say that. We can expect that he or she will be very carefully selected. But I think the public is right to be concerned. I think any well-thinking person would be concerned. You cannot investigate yourself, or you cannot oversee those who are investigating you. That's just a basic principle. And we've seen over and over again where persons, whether in the private or public sector, that find themselves in such a position have to step aside to allow the investigation to be complete.
Some contend that he has not broken any code of ethics and therefore he should not step aside. In fact, some go as far as to say that he has been vindicated, given that the Integrity Commission engaged an international forensic accounting firm. They found nothing.
That's not true.
No,
That's what he said.
True.
So I want you to engage with that perspective.
In fact, I would say the fact that the report has not been released, in my view, indicates to me that there may be potential down the road for the possibility of prosecution. And in any investigation, if you have that kind of information, you're not going to put it in the public domain. And we have to, and in fact, I think, again, it is in support of the Director of Investigation saying, let us refer it to the FID. And I'm sure in their exchange of information, they have an MOU that they will provide as much information to the FID so that the FID can come to a conclusion about illicit enrichment.
They're not restricted to providing the information in the public report. Their MOU allows them to exchange the report of the forensic investigator, anything else that they have.
Yeah. And it may well be that a lot of the information that we have here on the details of the transactions that the companies have entered into, that the forensic investigation that was done was helpful in getting some of this information. But as has been said, it's not sufficient to conclude the investigation, and it needs to be concluded. Why? Because the Prime Minister remains under a cloud. His Integrity Commission statutory declarations from 2021 onwards have not been certified, and the report indicates that they cannot be certified until the Integrity Commission is satisfied that they are in order. So it's very important that this matter be allowed to come to a conclusion. And I think it's reprehensible, the initial responses that we're hearing from the government side, suggesting that as far as they're concerned, this matter is at an end, it should not be referred any further, and so on. They're going to leave the Prime Minister under a cloud unless they let this matter be followed through to its end. And so I don't think that their responses really are helpful to his situation at all.
To me, they should be asking everybody to act hastily,
yes,
especially if they believe in his innocence, so that he can be cleared.
There is conflict of interest. So the Prime Minister appointed his business partner and co-investor in his real estate company, Norman Brown, to the chairmanship of UDC and the Housing Association of Jamaica, which both, as Senator Bunting said, fall under the Prime Minister's portfolio. Why is there a conflict here? You know,
well, let's just say the UDC and HAJ are two of the biggest public sector agencies in terms of expenditures, right? They spend billions of dollars. They're also significantly in the business of construction, housing, real estate development, which is the same type of activity that the Prime Minister is in, right? So the significant conflict is that you're appointing your business partner to head these two entities. They are engaging contractors, spending billions of dollars, and your private company is also doing the same thing. It is a significant conflict. And that individual, Mark, there's been no adverse finding in relation to his conduct in either of the entities at this point in time. But frankly, that person should not be in that position. He should remove himself so that there is no conflict at all. And it shouldn't even come to this. The fact of the matter is that, 18 Degrees North highlighted this a couple months ago of his directorship in these companies and the conflict with his business relationship with the Prime Minister. He should have removed himself long ago.
A prevailing view that exists on this particular matter of conflict of interest is that in as much as the Integrity Commission has not laid a charge, so there's this issue of charge. So people see that once there's no charge being laid, then nothing is wrong. Tell me why the moral objection is still in place, still intact, still sound, even if there is no charge being brought.
It's interesting. The Integrity Commission developed a code of conduct for politicians. And in hindsight, it's instructive that every PNP member of Parliament sign that at the invitation of the leader of the opposition. Not a single member of the GLP signed that. And this code of conduct was largely based on the Nolan principles.
7 principles of good governance.
Of good governance, widely accepted. There is nothing there that you could think of any well-thinking person would hesitate to sign. But yet no one has signed it. But the reason that these principles were developed was that for your leaders, you need a higher bar than criminal conduct. If those who say, well, they're not charged criminally, therefore everything is all right, then we've really hit rock bottom. And as the lawyers could explain, because you're not able to prove a criminal charge, doesn't necessarily mean the person is innocent. It just means the prosecution cannot prove it. So they attempt to set these principles, which are at a much higher level, for you to avoid conflicts of interest, for you to conduct yourselves in such a way that you are not preferring your own wealth, your own balance sheet at the denial of the benefit to the taxpayers and so on. So I think it is really shameful that people are saying because we don't have a criminal conviction then everything is okay, or a criminal charge, therefore everything is okay.
This is not a situation where the Prime Minister has been held to have not acted improperly. What they've said is that there's enough here that it warrants another agency with the necessary powers of investigation to take it to its logical conclusion. They need to get involved. So that is a cloud that is the Prime Minister is operating under now.
It is very interesting that Senator Bunting raised the Nolan's principles of conduct for public officials. I note where the report said that some of the findings are antithetical to those principles. Comrade Leader, what happened to the impeachment bill that would seek to remove public officials who contravene these principles of good conduct in office?
It's a sad story. Under Bruce Golding, when he was Prime Minister, an impeachment bill was tabled. I think it was in 2010 or thereabouts. It wasn't pursued. And many years later, in 2001, I think it was, when we had the incident with a member of Parliament who was caught on video assaulting a female with a stool, and it was 2021. There was a situation of the entire society was in uproar about this, and yet nothing could be done about it in order to ensure accountability. So I reviewed the bill that had been prepared by Bruce Golding, and I did some adjustments to make it more comprehensive so that it could capture not just the conduct in Parliament itself, but conduct by any parliamentarian that brings the office of a parliamentarian into disrepute. And I tabled it as a private member's bill. The JLP in their 2016 manifesto has said they would be passing impeachment legislation, but they have not allowed this bill to go forward. I wanted it to be sent to a joint select committee so that stakeholders in and outside of Parliament could weigh in on it, and we could come up with, tweak it to the extent necessary to make it something that would really enhance the governance and the accountability of public officials. It has not been allowed to go forward. And in fact, in the Constitutional Reform Committee report, which our representatives did not sign, they have recommended that we not have an impeachment provision in our Constitution. And the majority on that committee are persons who were appointed by the government. So their view on this has been flip-flopping, and it has been inconsistent, and we feel it is necessary that there must be something in the Constitution that would deal with delinquent behavior by parliamentarians, elected officials or appointed senators, so that if their conduct brings their office into disrepute, something can be done about it.
So the next PNP government will pass the impeachment bill in Parliament?
Yes, we will be pursuing it, and we hope that we can get consensus around it, because I don't personally believe that the constitutional amendments that don't enjoy bipartisan consensus is not the way to go. We've always proceeded on the basis of consensus around constitutional change. Now, this is a position that the JLP had been putting forward before, that they want to see impeachment happen. I'm hoping that they will revise their current view and we'll be able to move forward with consensus on this thing. And I hope that society as a whole will get behind it. But we will be pursuing it.
On the matter of revision, the Prime Minister has called for a revision of the Integrity Commissions Act. What is the opposition's position on that?
Well, we are presently reviewing, we have a joint select committee which is reviewing the Integrity Commission Act. We have not concluded those deliberations. So I personally was a little taken aback when he says, I will change the law, because we are contemplating what sort of changes we would want to see in the legislation. Listen, Cleveland, let's be clear. No